All right. Hi, I'm Harry Wardwell, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on news agencies in Europe. So this is a citation for the article that I used. It was published by the London School of Economics, and it's titled "The Future of National News Agencies in Europe." So a summary of that article, just briefly. The London School of Economics set out to analyze various international European news agencies, including the French AFP, the German DPA, and the Spanish EFE. They did this by first defining what these agencies are, and then looking towards their future and how business of this type will be affected. They used metrics like competition and digitization and the growth of markets to determine exactly how they'd be affected in the end. And the authorship, it came from the London School of Economics. So they focus on economics and political science, and it specifically comes from the Department of Media and Communications. And the LSE is one of the leading social sciences institutes in the world, according to their website, and they boast competitive programs and top researchers. So the audience of this article. So this article was explicitly written for news industry professionals and researchers viewing trends within the industry. That's stated in the abstract. I believe it's effectively written for this audience as it asks questions that would be of interest to these groups of people, like what strategic forces are influencing the future of international news agencies, and to what extent is the competition pressure for international agencies increasing? It definitely presents strong information in a digestible format for those involved in European news media. I think anyone with an interest in European news media could also glean a lot from this. I know that it's often not coming through to America, well, European news, as most of the news agencies that Americans follow are based in America. So, conclusions. The article stated that an international news service is an agency that operates nationally in home countries and internationally abroad. It maintains a network in 100 countries and collaborates with national agencies on mutual news supplies. So that's just working back and forth between bigger agencies and smaller ones. These are useful definitions as they create a simple categorization for international news providers. They also cited a few pressures that would affect news agencies in the upcoming years. These include ownership, that there could be problems with state-owned, publicly owned, or privately owned and the shift of that. And there's a media crisis currently going on, which is the shift to new media through other channels that news agencies are being forced to take advantage of or really lose viewers to. There's also diversification going on that isn't really being followed by these international agencies. Usually they're sticking to more old-fashioned methods, and the rest are innovation, cost pressures, subsidies, and social media. So the quality of this article. It's definitely written by professionals in the field who are well informed and come to strong conclusions given their information. The arguments that are presented make sense, but politics are a bit neglected. I don't know if this is a terrible thing, but they really just mention the dangers of a lack of oversight in relation to politics. In an article from the Pew Research Center, it's discussed how in Europe political leanings aren't divided by left or right rather than populism. That was really interesting to me because most news networks in America, even the ones that focus on international news, are usually divided into the left and right, like with Fox News and CNN. And news media can often relate better to elites, as elites typically are the business owners or those in charge. This is better in state and publicly owned news providers, though. And also, an article from Euractiv, European Media Network, discusses different problems in European news medias. These were kind of a bit separate from those in the abstract, and some stem from a decline in news media and a rise in public opinions, like social media taking the front seat to watching the news on television or in a newspaper, and the problem with having billionaires in charge and how new corporations are discussed. They believe news media is far from dead. An article from The Conversation speaks of the ways that legislation can aid European news media. The measures they wish are for more funding for news, better free press measures, and maybe the creation of an alternative to traditional news media through government channels. These are the links to the comparison articles that I just presented. And for my personal analysis, there isn't a mention of the United States in the article, which kind of struck me. Even when they were comparing other major news agencies that it didn't include in the main part of their studies, they were competitors from countries like Russia and Turkey rather than United States. because I guess most United States corporations are focusing on their domestic markets. And I think this article was very insightful in covering a topic I didn't have much background in. I recommend that students of communication, typically internationally focused ones, read this journal. All right. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Have a good one.